We're here with Dan Michaels, Derry Doherty, Steve Hindalong, and Chris Well of Seven Ball Magazine. It's a choir interview, and we're going to have to touch a little bit of the background just really quick to bring everybody up to speed in case somebody missed something along, your vast career.
Vast.
Yeah, very vast. How many albums have you guys done?
See, under the name Youth Choir, we did Voices and Shadows. Then we did this EP on Shadow called Shades of Gray, right? And then we did, I think, 4 records on Word. Diamonds and Rain that Charlie Peacock produced. The second one was Chase the Kangaroo, Wide-Eyed Wonder, Circle Slide.
And those were all on Myrrh Records?
Those were all on Myrrh. Then we did our own independent release of this thing called Kissers and Killers. And then for REX, we did Speckled Bird, which included those songs and had 5 more. So how many is that?
Very cool. I wasn't keeping track.
It's 30.
Yeah,
That's
30.
like 7.5.
7.5.
Well, there's 2 halves in there.
2 halves. So 7.
Okay, let's just say 7,
7.
which is the perfect
All right.
number.
I was told there would be. I was told there would be no math.
So that's why we got to quit right now, but we're not. We're doing another one.
Okay, now that comment actually brings me to a question, and Derry, maybe you can answer this. I don't know, Dan or Steve, but there had been rumors before that you were thinking about, at certain points after Speckled Bird, maybe never doing another record, or were those just rumors, or did you actually consider that?
Well, I think we've considered it about every record.
I mean, we thought that Chase the Kangaroo was our last record.
Okay.
And in fact, we've thought that a lot of the time.
Right.
But I think, we did talk about it, and I don't know who we said. There was never any official, even amongst ourselves, we hadn't come to any official, well, this is going to be it, or we're going to break up.
We never have band meetings, really.
We don't plan anything. Everything is about us just kind of happens.
Yeah, but Speckled Bird wasn't an easy experience. So at that point, we were all pretty frustrated.
We were.
So I think that at that point there probably was at least it was a time for me where I thought, I don't want to do this anymore. The problem is it takes so much energy to be a band.
Sure.
It takes so much time and energy that if you can't make a living at it, once you reach a certain point, you just can't do it anymore. You have to do other things to survive, and
Not that we know what those things will be.
we don't have any idea.
Because when we spend our 20s and we're halfway into our 30s, and this is all we've done. It's all we know how to do.
Sure.
So you're faced with that. Well, what do we do now?
You have a retrospective that Myrrh is putting out entitled, it's called Love Songs and Prayers, correct? Mm-hmm. A retrospective. And does this cover your whole career? Is there something from everything you've recorded as the choir or youth choir? Does it include anything from the first 2 youth choir records?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it does. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There's nothing on there from the first album, but there are a couple of songs on there that were recorded on that album. We actually used the versions that Mark Hurd recorded that were live. I think as time bore itself out, those sounded better.
Right, than the first album.
Although they were demos.
Well, who produced the first record that actually came out?
Tom Roy.
Oh, Tom Roy did.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mark Hurd had also done some of those songs, produced some of those same songs.
During that period, the record company Maranatha decided they wanted to do a single, 45. And so we went back in and recut A Million Years with Mark. That's when we had started to become friends with Mark, and we knew we were going to leave Maranatha, and we wanted to do a demo, so we had Mark do a couple songs. One of the songs ended up going on the Shades of Grey EP. And that's what we used to shop to Myrrh Records when we got the deal with Myrrh.
The reason we preferred the Million Years version that Mark did was that Dan was in the band, Dan Michaels. Dan wasn't in the band when we did the first album, and then he got in the band, and so then on this version of it, it had Lyricon on it, and also I played the drums, which I didn't. It was the first album was Drum Machine, which I didn't never have appreciated very much, but that version, the drums sound real good. Mark recorded them.
Yeah,
and
everything sounds better now. It's just a better.
And Mark was just had a timeless grip, and we had done the EP Shades of Grey, which has we like a lot of the songs, but it has a real 80s. It's a very 80s sounding recording. And then going back and listening to the demo we had done with Mark, it just stood the test of time.
Well, and that's a good documentation of who we were at that point, where the other records weren't necessarily who we were really live or anything. This record, those two versions of those songs were very much who we were. They had all the elements of who we were live.
So it's understandable why those would be included on this new retrospective, the Mark Hurd versions. How were all these songs chosen?
Well, we have this Ouija board, and then we'll put our hands on it.
Wow. Well, that comment will go over really well, I think, in the CBA evangelical market.
It's funny, it just spells out the names of the songs.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it was Dan's idea to call it Love Songs and Prayers. In an interview, I had said that. I guess I've said that before, that almost all of our songs are love songs or in prayer, one or the other, if not both, at the same time. And so with that theme, we tried to pick the songs. I wanted it's chronological, and wanted it to, span the whole career without embarrassing us too much. So that was the criteria. It had to be a love song or a prayer, and it had to be not too embarrassing.
Usually when a band does a retrospective, sometimes it either signifies the end of something or maybe the start of something new. Is the band at a point right now where you're moving on? There's a new project in the works?
Well, yeah, we're going to do another record.
Great.
On Tattoo Records.
Does this new album for Tattoo mark something new, a new direction maybe?
Pretty much every record takes a different direction.
Sure.
It will be
does.
different. The record will
So-
be different than the last one.
Chris? Question?
Okay, well, at this point of the story, one of the next things you got going on is the tour. It's a big deal, big dollars. So clarify this for me. My understanding is that it is in fact it's your farewell tour, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of the band. Is that a fair assessment?
Yeah, that's a fair assessment. Because we have a studio, so we can pretty much do a record whenever we feel like it if we want to put in the time. The touring issue... Touring is the hardest thing to keep going for a band because it takes a lot of time out of your life, and you hardly ever make any money at it. The situation we're in as a band now, it's hard to do that. We've got families, we've got to make a living with the studio and producing, and to take 2 months out of your life, 2 or 3 times a year to go tour, gets harder and harder to do. From my perspective, I just wanted to do a really good tour and end on a really good note.
At this point, it's not necessarily your last record that's coming up then.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Not necessarily. Basically, though, that it is the end of our commitment to each other.
Right.
Because it's just like you having a business. You can't just say, I can't just say, I'm not going. And Derry can't do that. A lot of times Derry's probably wanted to go, I'm not going. But you can't do it because you're committed all to each other. And
Sure.
and beyond this next we got the spring tour and beyond a couple of festivals, Cornerstone and whatever. That
Uh-huh.
ends our commitment to one another based on this point of time.
Right.
And it's not to say
Sure.
that we won't do any gigs in the fall or that we won't do another record.
Do you feel not playing to live audiences might impact the way you guys record or what you record? Do you think it'll impact the records?
It might. We don't necessarily make records thinking, how can we do this live?
Yeah, it doesn't
We-
seem like we've ever
Sure.
thought of
We
that
never.
at
In
all.
fact, we've never done that.
Thought of it,
We always
sure.
end up after the fact listening to the record and going, how are we going to do this live?
But does playing live can impact what you record or what you write
don't
about?
know.
Obviously.
We've never been the kind of band. A lot of bands write songs and then go out on the road and play them. We have never done that.
We're probably the
ever.
only band that has never recorded a song that we've ever played before.
No, we've never done
live. We set up, mic up, get ready, and then we go, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
And we create the entire album. We've done that with several albums now. That's why it's not weird for us to say we don't know what the album's going to be like, because we never know. We're going to set up, mic up,
Yeah.
and then start.
The only time we ever had songs going into a record was the first album and the EP, the first EP. That was the only 2 times we've ever had songs written.
Dan, at what point did you join the band? I wasn't quite clear on that.
Yeah, I joined the band, 10, 11 years ago. It was about 1984. Derry called me up and asked me to come over. Yeah, around 85. Yeah. and came over to audition with the then youth choir, and hang out at his dad's church. It was just after Voices and Shadows was mixed, just probably right when it was coming out.
And you played Lyricon for the
Lyricon,
most part?
electronic sax.
Electronic sax.
Yeah.
A very unusual instrument?
Kinda, yeah. I've never really seen too many people using it. It just it's like a woodwind instrument, but it's connected up to like a sound module, like a synthesizer.
Huh.
But I like playing sax a lot too, so I play sax in the band.
Do you still use the Lyricon as much live? It seems to me like I've seen you play sax more lately live.
Really? No, I've been a lot of what I do does come out more live. I cover a lot of Derry's guitar lines that he does on the records.
Sure.
And so a lot of that's done on the electronic sax.
You've been playing sax with Carmen.
I have. Oh, you know
You
what?
tour with the Car Man?
Here's a guilty confession. I've toured with Brian Duncan.
You did?
I
What
toured
tour?
with-
Do you remember what tour?
Lunatic Liar. What was that? Anonymous
no,
Confessions of a
Lunatic Friend.
Yeah.
Lunatic Friend.
Lunatic Friend. Oh, sorry, Lunatic Friend.
Oh, that's funny. Just a little Freudian slip there for the Mer people. Yeah, that's nice, Dan. We won't be talking to you much anymore. Okay, so is there anything you want to say about the retrospective, Dan?
I think it turned out really well. I like the outtake or the alternative version songs quite
Sure.
a bit.
And there are 3 alternative versions, right? What are those exactly?
A Million Years,
All Night Long.
All Night Long, from Shades of Grey.
And you put the dub mix of Car
Car-
Etc., right?
Well,
Hard
that was a
Setter.
mix Mark Hurd did at
Yeah.
Mix.
And that was
Yeah.
on a promo-only single that Epic put out, right?
Yeah.
On the Wide-Eyed Wonder
That was
album?
A&M at that time.
Oh, A&M,
A&M
that's
was
right,
true,
A&M.
you know.
We actually, if I may say this, some of the questions I've been asking, and I think some of them are good, like how will playing live, will that affect your recording, have been sent in by different industry people, and that one was sent in by Chris McIntosh of WCWP, who is,
right.
as you know, has the longest-running Christian rock show out there. Go ahead, Chris.
What are any goals that, and all 3 of you, I'm interested in what you have to say. What are goals you go, wow, I really hope the band does this? You still have goals you want to accomplish before you would call it a day.
2 things for me. Everybody has probably other things. I feel a little bit responsible for the audience as far as lyrically, and I felt a little bit uncomfortable with a lot of the lyrics on the last release, and I feel like I really would like to offer, because I have a lot of hope, and I know as a band we've had some disappointment and we've had some frustration, not just professionally but in our lives. And the last record came out at a time when we were all struggling in a lot of ways. But as we do have a lot of hope and faith, and we know it's valuable, and I hope that the next album reflects that. So I'd like to really offer some insight. And the other thing is that on this last run out, this last tour, that I hope that we just have a really good time, and enjoy it.
Personally, for me, I would say too, I want to make. I hope that we make the best record we've ever made, and I think that we will. I think we can, and we will. So that, we've always approached all of our records as if they were the last record, because there's always some big something going on, with the record company or somebody going, oh, we don't know if we're going to let you do another record or not, or something. So, the same thing this time. This time really mentally is not that much different than before. So I think that first I would like to make the best record we've ever made, and then also just do the best tour we've ever done. Be able to play and sound better than we ever have, and leave the audience thinking that, wow, they got their money's worth and that they saw a really good band.
I just really want to please Jesus.
Dan,
Oh yeah, I mean,
are you addicted to Jesus? All I can say is always stay A
this
to
tour's
J,
gonna be a
guys.
riot.
So Dan, you're
My
Hopes,
goals with the choir. Before
Besides to see your solo album come out on CD, that cassette on the release.
Oh,
On that too, of course.
yeah. Wow. 1990. Well, I would hope that a few more people recognize what we do and get to hear our music and get to enjoy and experience what the band has to say than have heard that in the past. I'd like to put on a great tour and just be more involved with the audience and just be more available and be more I don't know, honest and open than we have ever been. Even though I feel really satisfied with a lot of the directions that it has gone in the past. I do have a stutter problem, so that's why it was like I was turning.
You
flush.
do not.
I do too. You've heard. I don't know. It's kind
Dan wants to stay at people's houses on this tour. He wants this to be the tour where he stays with the fans.
So Dan wants to actually go and stay with some
When
of
he
the.
said he wants to reach out to the audience, that's what he means. He wants to stay with the fans.
Wow, and I guess it doesn't even matter if they have a shower.
Oh no, of course not.
Because I didn't have a shower where I used to live. I used to live over at Derry's studio at Neverland
Right.
downtown, and
They didn't have a shower.
for over a year.
Oh,
It was
for
about
a year.
about a year or so, and there was no shower there. So I, a 31-year-old man, had to get in my car every day and drive to the local YMCA down the street and
Right.
take showers, in the community bathhouse there.
Or occasionally would borrow a friend's shower.
There you go. I
A-
showered.
after asking Dan to come over and move something once, Dan's like, "We're all finished up. We'll see you. Thanks, and whatever. I appreciate it. Let me pay for your gas." Dan goes, "Can I use your shower?" I go, "Well, live that far from here, but what seems to be the problem?"
Very strange.
You were helping us move, saw that it looked nice, and just wanted to try it out. He likes other people's bathtubs. That was funny because I had no idea.
You didn't know?
Well,
Why-
Neverland was in a huge old house. It looked like a house to me.
Oh,
It was a
gosh.
house, but it was like a house built before they had showers.
I'm going to ask one of each of you a question because I think these are good questions. Chris McIntosh wanted us to ask these. Steve, when Fade Into You first came out, you mentioned it had been inspired, at least in part, by T.S. Eliot. Who else has affected your lyrics and why?
Okay, it was Derry that had read the T.S. Eliot thing and suggested that title for the song. And I don't read anything. Gary's reads a lot more things than I do.
Sure.
I read the TV Guide and stuff like that.
You're reading Owen Meany right now, though.
I read it finally. It
A
took
prayer
me
for
months. It
a
took
prayer
me-
for Owen Meany.
Everybody read it except for me, and it took me months and months. Because I'm the kind of guy that reads a page and then realizes that I was thinking about other things the whole time I was reading that page, and I got to back up. But no,
So
I'm not,
what
I'm
has
not,
then
I,
what
I'm
has
prim-
then inspired your lyrics? I mean,
I don't know. I always wanted to probably just experience. I always have wanted to write poetry. That's the first thing I remember wanting to do. And I'm probably more influenced by other lyricists than literary things. People always ask that question. I'm always embarrassed. I mean, I majored in, I went to school and have a BA in English literature, but I just that just means that you had a dozen classes, and I just did what I had to do to get that degree, and I'm not really I'm the dumbest person in our circle. I just I don't know. I'm good. I can turn a good phrase and I make things rhyme.
When I think of the songs of yours that I like the best, I always feel like they seem very personal, and I feel a lot like I'm reading your diary. Is that a fair assessment of your songwriting?
Yeah, I mean, it's terribly honest. I wish that it wouldn't be. And I'm just getting to where I on this next thing, I'm trying to think of a theme. We were listening the other day. We were listening in Jerry's car. For some reason, we were listening to the Eagles.
Oh, God. That's right.
It was the Outlaw.
Yeah, it was
Right?
just Desperado.
Desperado, right. And there was all these songs about outlaws, and I'm just like, that's what we need, a theme to do a whole album that doesn't have anything to do with me, you know, because my wife doesn't appreciate it at all. I mean, to the point where like, no more, and it's not fair to the rest of the band, and I just don't know what to do but to talk about what is going on.
Sure.
And when I hear the music, when Derry usually comes up with some kind of a line or something, we put down something, and then the music is what inspires. That usually kind of comes first. The musical feeling, it makes me feel something, and I respond. So whatever it is that's going on in me just comes to the surface because of the music. And so my favorite writers, have told the truth. And to me, the more particular, the more specific, the more original it is. And so you know that you're not being sold anything. When Neil Young said, I was thinking about what a friend had said, I was hoping it was a lie. I don't know who the friend was or what was said, but I know that it's based on substance. It's very, very curious. I know what that song is. I kind of get what that After the Gold Rush is about, but I'd like to ask him, because I know he's not selling me something. I'm not being manipulated. It's about real things. And I hope that our audience knows that everything is based on substance, and these are the feelings are genuine, and we're not trying to sell anybody anything. But
Okay, Derry, let me ask you something. You've worked with a lot of other people. I mean, all the choir members have worked with other bands and artists, but you in particular have worked with Jeff Johnson, the Lost Dogs, even indie-type artists like Jim Mosher. Has this had any influence on you as an artist or your work or writing with the choir or even individually?
Well, I mean, guys like Terry and, Mike Rose, probably my favorite guitar player, or one of my favorite guitar players. So they have influences, and Terry from early on was an influence as far as just his songwriting and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, they've had influences. Jeff, in a lot of ways, I really appreciate the stuff that Jeff does, and but I don't know if it necessarily influences me musically as much as just listening to stuff. I mean, I just listen to I listen to music all the time, from the time I get up to, the time I go to bed. So I think that's probably more just outside influences more so than personal relationship influences.
Sure.
Do some of those projects, though, allow you to get certain things out of your system?
Oh,
so
definitely.
then so it'll change how you do the choir?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, there's things that are appropriate for that I can take to Lost Dogs that would not be appropriate for the choir just because of the style of music it is, I mean, I like country music. I like old country music like Hank Williams and stuff like that. So, and even like, I thought it was great that Alison Krauss won all these awards because she's like old-time country music. So I like all of that kind of thing, but it's not appropriate for what we do. What we do is a whole different thing. We're three individuals that make music together, not necessarily just what I like or what Steve likes or what Dan likes or something.
That actually brings me to another question, and maybe we've already touched on it, I guess, but this is the choir. Is the choir basically 3 or 4 people? I mean, it's Dan, Derry, Steve, it's you three, and then Tim Chandler has been your bass player.
well, depends on how you look at it. I mean, the choir is a body of music, a body of work, and a lot of different people have participated in that other than
Sure.
just than the three of us. So they're very much a part of the choir if they participate in the creative process. Tim Chandler has co-wrote a great deal of the songs.
Sure.
And has been a catalyst. As a bass player, I don't know. I mean, there was only one album we did without him. Even when he wasn't in the band, he was a part of the creative process. And
It's true.
he's the one that introduced me to Derry, so he's very much a part of the choir, as far as I'm concerned. And that'd probably be the only other one.
Yeah.
Although everyone, I mean, Mike Sabre was very much a part. Robin
Yeah.
was very much a part. The different bass players
Sure.
went during their time.
That's very true.
They were part of the creative process and they played. So, But it's always the three of us that are dealing with
Yeah.
the pragmatic side of things.
I mean, if I sit down and come up with something musically and it goes to, and it doesn't get recorded by the choir, it would be a completely different thing than it would be if Steve writes a lyric and plays drums and we arrange it and whatever. I mean, that's like a whole different. That's what makes the choir, is the fact that all of us have these different influences, and because of all the influences that come to the table, no one influence can be dominant. You know what I mean? It's not like if I wrote a song or something, you know, it might sound like such and such or whatever, but because of the other influences, it's not going to. You know, it's going
Right.
to be something different, and that's what makes the choir the choir.
I find that with, because I've gotten to produce in the last couple of years a lot of new bands. I've produced a lot of bands' first records, and they tend to all be listening to the same things, and so their things tend to. It's hard to get away from being extremely derivative
Sure.
because they're all listening to Nirvana and the Smashing Pumpkins or whatever. And as time goes on, and we were like that. I mean, our first thing sounded like the Police, you know, because we were into the Police and, you know, U2 or whatever. And we've become, I guess, comfortable enough over the years to where, you know, we have our own things that we listen to, and I don't listen to this. Derry listens to a lot more things than I do, but, you know, we don't listen to the same things necessarily, and of course, Tim was an entirely different kind of player than us. He's, you know, and so the three of us coming at things totally different ways is made for uniqueness.
Dan, what changes have you seen come about in your life as a result of being in the choir this past decade?
I guess a lot of the changes have just been real personal. I've been really inspired and influenced by working with Steve and Derry, you know, over these years, and I feel I've grown up. Part of my goal, I guess, when I first started in a Christian band with youth choir was to change the world and to make everybody's life better. But what I actually ended up finding out is that my life became better as a result of being near strong people and influential people, you know, like Terry Taylor or Gene Eugene from Adam Again, and like Tim Chandler too, has been a strong influence. So it's mainly been relationships and getting to know people. It's kind of made me probably a little bit better person. Otherwise, I'd probably be like some guy working at Firestone in Akron. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's probably where I'd be right now if it weren't for being in a band.
I've got a question for you, Steve. Probably what everyone is wanting to know is you contributed a track to the Stryper tribute that's coming out.
Right.
And you do a song on there. What song do you do?
I regret it. I just heard it. I'm very. I probably regret it a lot. I thought it was funny. I mean, I guess I thought there was some irony in. I think of myself as kind of a poet, I guess, if anything, and so
Sure.
I thought there was something kind of funny about doing the worst lyric ever written. You know, I liked it. It was. And doing it, you know.
What song
face
was
it.
it? I can't.
To hell with the devil, you know. You know what I mean? And that was only the second most reason. The other reason is $500. Only that was for all I get is $100. I mean, in the studio, and we haven't been paid yet, but ultimately we will. In the studio.
Well, let's not count those chickens before they're hatched, huh?
I mean, I'm surrounded by people that are hurting, you know, and Chris Gobert engineered it. It was one day, you know, and $100 for him, $100 for me, $300 for the studio. You know, I might have done something worse. Not possible, but you know. Yeah.
That's funny.
I regret I should have got somebody to play the bass and the electric guitar.
Well, speaking of you playing bass and guitar, I remember hearing, you know, you've written some songs that are outside the choir vein, and I know you've talked about solo things. Is there a possibility of a Steve Hindalong solo project in the future?
Well, anything's possible, but it's just, I don't know. And I mean, that's sort of a little bit terrifying, you know, because I'm really proud of a lot of the things that we've done, together, and if I did something like that, it'd be sort of high risk. But I do have written a lot of songs, and you know, I may get up the nerve sometime, because it would be a totally different kind of thing, and I don't know what it would be or what place it would have stylistically. But yeah, I imagine that'll happen sometime.
Great. I know a lot of people would like to see it. You've done, I mean, we've had glimpses of it on projects, you know, that you've worked on. Like At the Foot of the Cross is something we haven't mentioned. Another series of projects, well, the latest one was on Myrrh, and I know that's been very critically acclaimed. I mean, how do you guys feel about that?
If we, you know, that's a wonderful thing to be able to inspire people to worship, and like that, to do the 7 last words of Christ, and it forces me to get into the Bible and have to spend all this time. I spend a great deal of time focusing on the death and the resurrection of Christ, and that has helped me as a person to feel. I mean, I came away after that record feeling so forgiven, and that, I don't know. I hope that those opportunities keep opening for us, and Derry and I have a way of working together on that kind of stuff that I think is really successful artistically. I mean, At the Foot of the Cross is supposed to be a trilogy, was the idea, and the first one was very broad, and the second one focused on Lent, the actual death, and the last one is supposed to be most very celebrative, focused on the resurrection and the ascension.
Do you ever look back fondly on touring memories? I mean, do you have good memories
Oh, yeah.
of touring and playing
Yeah.
places like that?
Yeah, I mean the tours for the most part. I mean, all the good stories are the bad ones. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So those are the ones that get told all the time. But
The ones you can laugh at.
you know the tours have always been, for the most part, have been really fun. I mean, we get to go out and act like a bunch of kids. So that's always been a great thing. And just to be able to play. I mean, you get to play in front of people, and they come to see you play, and they appreciate it. And there's nothing like that. That's for sure.
As time has gone on, more and more people know the songs, and that's the payoff. And the good songs tend to last the test of time. You know, you always have to do the hypey songs, but then your favorite one are the ones that people that stay with you. You know, you can still play Sad Face, you can still play Sentimental Song, you know, and that's the ones that people really like if they're still there, still watching you. The good songs that stay, and that's a good feeling to go to a city you've never been. You know, go somewhere in Dakota or someplace, and all these people know all the songs, and you feel like a real bond or connection.
Editing.
You had the plan for the retrospective. So obviously some of the choices were made for, you know, this didn't fit in because it didn't fit the theme. I guess one question I have a couple of them. One question is, are there any songs you go, man, I wish I could have put that on, but it didn't fit the theme?
Right, there were some like that. 15 Doors was one that ended up being people's favorite. It was on the EP, and I would have liked to put that on, but it's one of the few songs that wasn't. The other one we wanted to put on was Wilderness,
Right.
which we did an acoustic version for Browbeat, which is a thing that Mike Knott did. Lyrically, it was very much an exception.
I understand that there were actually the lineup that ended up being on the retrospective is not the original lineup you picked because you were unable, or they were unable, or somebody was unable to find masters for certain songs. Is that true?
We couldn't find some of the masters. Some of the stuff we took off CD. Yeah, because we don't know where the masters are.
Wow.
And Word doesn't either. So, yeah, that's a tough
It's in
one.
my closet.
It's in somebody's closet.
Exactly.
Tom Galata probably has it. He has everything. The choir is a band who isn't going to like a greatest hits just of radio songs. I mean, that kind of defies the point of...
Right.
But when-
Well,
in
and
order-
for us, we wanted something that meant something. That meant something to us. These are the things, you know, our fans can know that these are some of the things that mean the most to us, and hopefully that, you know, these seem to be some of the ones that people like best. Over the years, they've kind of, like Steve said, stood the test of time. So,
Like Sad Face.
like Sad Face. I actually wish we would have had more things that had never been on a record. because we have a bunch of old songs that we at one time we thought, well, we're going to put some of these on, and then it was like, no, we listened to them and baked some tapes, and it was like, I don't think so.
Where's those cassettes that you have?
Of some very, very funny old things.
That the band had recorded.
Just like cassettes of live
Live
shows
shows.
that I was tempted to put them on there, you know. But I didn't want to
Bits
get.
and pieces. On
We were going to put.
the conversation is the main thing you want to hear on them.
The Dairy talking between songs
Yeah.
is like worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
What is that? Is it humorous?
Oh, it's humorous, all right.
I mean, back when we first started, there was so much pressure to minister,
You had to
give
preach.
an altar call. You had to preach.
So we're just scared to death, and we're going, oh, what do you do?
So you're up there,
So I'm
Derry,
up there trying to be a preacher.
which is kind of following in your dad's footsteps. He's a
Not-
pastor, right?
Yeah, but not quite. We almost put this one song on there, but it had Tim Chandler singing.
Oh.
Really
So
loud.
yeah.
He was like the loudest guy, and he was singing so high.
Was he supposed to? Was he singing lead
Oh,
actually
it
live?
was harmony. It was harmony. But
Oh, but
you know
he-
how in concert the harmony a lot of times is just as loud or louder
Right.
than the lead, and it was All Right Tonight was the
That's
song, and it's on our first album, and that was the one. The album ends with an edited version of that. I don't know if you've heard of that
Just like
off
a
a
little-
cassette.
Sure.
Just this noisy the intro and the whole song was supposed to go on there, but Tim was singing the harmony
Yeah.
so loud, and it was the funniest thing. Like you would
Oh,
cry
so
if you heard it. I cried a lot of
It was
times
so
hearing
funny.
it, laughing so hard.
Because it was like triple tracked on the tape. Like, well, the one tape we had, the mix that I wanted to do a mix of, it was like triple tracked, and it was the kind of thing where it was so funny. Because there was a period of about 6 months where Tim really like went up to the microphone and just sang as loud as he could, just like really into it,
Did it, man? But you know, I
But
mean,
when we heard it, we
you've
were all
seen
afraid.
Tim. You know that he's really big. You know, and I like tossed and turned. We can't do that. I'm gonna get socked.
Yeah.
You know, really.
Somebody would've
And I
got
didn't have the courage, or I would have.
Tim is a big fella.
I did not have the courage, but I would have liked to have played that for the fans. But
Okay,
Well,
bang
no,
on that
no.
thing for a second. Just I want that. No, that.
Oh, this?
Pick that up. No, pick it up. Do something. We're gonna have something on there that I can put underneath as we're laughing and going out. Oh yeah, there we go. Awesome. Dan, you should be chanting right now.
I should be chanting, I should be chanting, chanting with you.
Not bad for a spittoon.
Yay.
Oh, good night.
All right.
I need to sing that.
Oh, shit. That's a keeper.
Yeah, I'll put it on the-